Hey everybody, Doug here. I've got a tool on my website that's actually pretty useful for those of us who produce video, and I wanted to do a demonstration of it here today. I've demonstrated this here on the channel before, but it's been quite a long time and I've added a lot of features to it, so it's time for an update. But the tool is basically a real-time clock with the ability to do countdowns as well. So let's just dive into this and we'll take a look and I'll show you what's new. All right, so as mentioned, this is a free tool. It's been available on my website for quite a long time, and I did demonstrate it here on my channel a few years ago, but it is so different. It's changed so much since then that it's probably time to actually do a real demonstration of it as well. So let's actually dive right in. You can get to this tool through a shortcut that I have set up. So you can go to your browser, you can go to djp.li/djpclock. And just press enter on that, and just do this quick intermission page to let you know exactly where you're being redirected. That's a security feature I have on my URL redirector. So there it is. Now it's taking to the actual page where this tool is available. So if you look up in the URL bar here, it's just djprod.biz/clock.php. So if you can enter that too if you want, but I find the shortcut to be a little easier to remember. All right, so this is a real-time clock. So you can use this for whatever you want. If you want to have a big display somewhere, I use this most often actually as in a SuperSource window on my switcher, so I can always see what time it is just at a glance. So I very often have a dedicated input on my switcher coming from this particular page. Now, if you want to clean this up a little bit so you don't have to see all the window chrome all around it, you can go full screen on Windows. That's done with F11. So there we go. So there, now it's full screen, and there you go. The little reminder there disappeared. So now we have a clean view of this, and it can be used as a video source for whatever you want. Now, I've actually seen this used quite a lot with OBS. So you're actually able to use the browser source feature of OBS and redirect and direct to this particular URL and apply this as a layer on top of other sources that you have going on within OBS. I'm not going to demonstrate that here today, but anybody who's familiar with OBS will probably know how that works. All right, so this is, again, a real-time clock, and I've done a lot of work, put a lot of effort into making sure that this is actually as close to real-time as is possible. So it's synchronizing with one of my own servers, which is synchronizing its own time many times per day, and I've monitored it for drift, and it seems to be pretty good. The time should be accurate to well within less than 1/10 of a second compared to the official time from NIST, I guess, is the worldwide standard for that. So anyway, so this should be real accurate. It synchronizes when you first load the page. It synchronizes after 10 seconds just to make sure everything is sort of settled. It synchronizes after 10 minutes, and I believe it's every 10 minutes thereafter. I'd have to look at the code to see exactly what it is. But it does synchronize fairly often in order to make sure that the time that's being displayed is as accurate as it can be. So again, I put a lot of effort into that. And this is independent of the time on your computer. It does rely on the time zone for your computer for its initial display. But if your clock on your computer is off, it doesn't matter. This is going to display the correct time, and it does a lot in order to try and maintain that. Now, it's actually a lot more than just a real-time clock. It actually has a countdown feature, and I'll be demonstrating that here in a moment. But let's take a look at some of the various features that are available as part of this. So if we want to get to the toolbar, the control for this, we just click anywhere on the page. That brings up the toolbar here at the top of the page. You can see the first option here is selecting a time zone. It defaults to your local time zone, whatever your computer is set to. But if you wanted to do another one, you can actually just select it from the list. So, for example, if I wanted to do Detroit, I could select America/Detroit here, and that will actually switch to the time in Detroit, Michigan. All the time zones that I could find are in the list, and that does get updated from time to time, so that you should be able to find any time zone you need there in that list. The next option we have here is choosing the time format. Now, it defaults to 24-hour time, but you can also choose 12. So for those of us who are in the United States, we're more used to 12-hour time. And so you can select that if you want to. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and click on the view button here to switch to that. So here it is. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon here, or most of the world. We're used to seeing 14. For the hour, here is in the 12-hour time format. So the next thing we have here is be able to choose the size of the text. So if I want to make that bigger, let's go to say 21, and then I'll click view on there. There we go. So that's a little bit bigger than it was. Fills up a little bit more of the screen. So you're able to choose what size you actually want for that. The next option we have here is an offset. So if you need to offset the time by a certain amount of time in seconds, you can do this. So if we want to have the clock be 30 seconds ahead or 30 seconds behind, you can either do plus or minus 30 in the offset box. And then after you refresh, the time will always be offset by that much. So you can use that to say, for example, account for the streaming delay. So if you wanted to have a clock that appears somewhere in one of your shots or whatever, and you want it to be as close to the time that the viewer is seeing as possible, you kind of do a quick test to see what the round trip delay is from the time you send it out until the time the viewer sees it, and then input that as the offset. Or for whatever any other reason you want to have an offset in there, you can certainly do that. The next option here is to set the color, and the color here is only used for the real-time clock. The countdown clock, which I'll get to here in a moment, has its own set of colors, which are currently not customizable. I may get to that at some point, but for right now, it is not currently customizable. But for this, in the case here, if we wanted to say make this blue or whatever, so I'll click on the blue, there we go, whoops, and then hit view, and there we go. Now we're viewing the clock in blue. I'm going to go back to red, as it's a little easier to read and sort of mimics the classic LED clock look that I was going for with this particular page. Next thing we have here is a label, and this is added below the clock. So in this case, I want to say that this is in mountain time. So I'll just hit mountain in there, and then, whoops, still on the blue there. So I'll go back to red, or close to. That's not the official red, but it's close enough. All right, so there we go. So it has the label underneath there indicating something, whatever you want. So you can put whatever label you want on there. Very often you do the name of a city or a time zone, but it can be whatever. You can count down, if you're doing countdown, maybe the event that you're counting down to. You can put whatever you want. And that does shift so that things are still centered top to bottom. The next thing we have here is the countdown feature itself. And I'll demonstrate this here in a little bit more detail. So if you wanted to count down to a very specific date and time, you would enter that here in. This does use your local time format. So the fact that I'm in the United States, we use month, day, year. So month, day, year, and then hour, and then minute, and then second. So you're able to count down to a very specific moment in time, and that will count down in hours, minutes, and seconds. Okay. In addition to that, it also has some presets for, say I want to count down for 5 minutes or whatever. So we have got this drop down here. You can see that this list has a number of different common times that you might want to use. So 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, so forth, going up to 5 minute increments up to an hour, and then 90 minutes, 2 hours, and then up to 8 hours. There are ways to do other times as well, but those are just a few quick presets. And let me kind of demonstrate what happens here. So I'll do a 2 minute and then hit go. It changes to white text, and then it actually indicates either a plus or a minus there on the front of the time. Minus means we're counting down to the event, and then after we reach that time, it starts counting up and puts a plus on the front to indicate that, hey, we're still in countdown mode. To make it very clear that we're not looking at a time of day. So very distinct. The color here does change depending on what's going on. So white is sort of the default, but once you get to 1 minute remaining, the time will actually, the color will actually change. So I'm just very quickly here jump directly to 1 minute remaining. So I'll hit go. There we go. You can see that it went from white to yellow. So yellow is sort of hey, you got less than 1 minute remaining. So it tries to get the attention of whoever is using this. If you're using this for a presenter or whatever, you kind of let them know. It's like, hey, you need to start winding down here a little bit. And then once we get to 30 seconds remaining, it's going to change again. It's going to change to orange in that case. And then once we get to 10 seconds, it's going to change to red, but the text is actually going to flash, not fully flash, but it's going to go between a brighter red and a darker red. So there we go. There's the 30-second change. Just so someone can see at a glance, just by looking at the color, how much time they've got, or at least a rough approximation of how much time they've got. So we'll let this go here for a few more seconds, and we'll get to 10 seconds, and we'll see that flashing start to take place. And then once we get to 0, it totally changes yet again. So here we go, it's 10 seconds. So there's the red with the flashing. So it doesn't turn all the way off, so you can always read the time, and it's not so distracting as you typically find with a full flash. Once you get to 0 seconds here, you can see that the background went to red, so let somebody know, hey, you're over. You're past the time that we wanted. And then it continues to flash for the first 10 seconds after that. And then at that point, it goes back to white text. And again, we have the plus sign there on the front to indicate that we are still in countdown mode. Okay. All right, so that about covers the options that are available here on the toolbar, but there is a lot more going on. One of the things that I added about a year ago, actually, when I was using this for a big production that I was involved in, and we were using this for many things, I realized very quickly that I needed a way to customize this a little bit faster. So I added keyboard shortcuts for a lot of different features here on the page. So the first one is the letter C. So you just press the C key on your keyboard and it goes back to your real-time clock. So after you finish a countdown, you want to go back to displaying the current time, you just hit the C key there and that takes care of that. All right. In addition to that, I've actually got some presets for doing specific countdown times. So if you just press one of the number keys on the keyboard, it will start counting down that number of minutes. So if I wanted a 5-minute timer, I just hit the 5 key and it starts counting down from 5 minutes. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. When you get to 9 for 9 minutes, and then 0 is used as a 10. 0 is sort of a replacement for a 10. So anytime I reference these shortcuts, if you, the 0 is a 10. Okay. Now, along with that, we actually have some modifier keys that can be used with these keyboard shortcuts as well. And for example, the first one is the Shift key. So I press Shift and press a number. That does a 5 times multiplier. So if we want to go 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, etc., we can do Shift 1, 2, and 3. So just a very easy way to give you additional range that you can work with by adding the Shift to multiply by 5 minutes. We also have Control, which does 30-minute increments. So 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, etc., all the way up to 5 hours. And that's just with the Control key. And then we also have one that uses both Shift and Control, and that is hours. So if we wanted to say 6 hours, that's Control Shift 6, and bingo, there it goes. So very easy, quick way to do specific amounts of time. It's very common at these sort of things. You'll have a presenter say, "Hey, can you give me 12 minutes on the clock?" I'm like, well, so bad example on my part, but 15 minutes, for example. So you do Shift 3. And that's 3 times 5 minutes, and then there you go. You got your 15-minute countdown. Another thing that I found that I needed to be able to do was be able to pause the clock. And so the P key pauses and unpauses, and you can see that when it's paused, it grays out. And then just recently, I also added the space key, space bar, as a way to pause and unpause as well. And as of yesterday, if you were paused and you set the countdown time, so 3 for 3 minutes, it starts in the pause state. So you're able to display the amount of time and then hit the space bar in order to start the actual countdown. So there is that as well. They also have the ability to tweak, to adjust the time here as well. So I've added the ability to use the plus and minus keys on the keyboard, although the plus key doesn't require the shift, in order to adjust the time by 5 seconds. So if I press the equal key, which is the plus without the shift, so that adds 5 seconds, and then minus similarly subtracts 5 seconds. So go back to 1 minute. Yeah, there we go. So you can tweak as needed, and then pause and unpause as required for whatever you're wanting to do. If you hold the Shift key with that, so we'll do Shift plus, that adds 30 seconds. And then Shift with minus, that subtracts 30 seconds. Also have the Control modifier, which adds minutes and subtracts minutes as well, using the plus and minus there on the keyboard. Okay. All right. Let's see what else. Oh yes. So one other keyboard shortcut that is available. So if you want to tweak the size of the font, you can actually do that as well, and that is done using the up and down arrows on your keyboard. So if you want to go a little bigger, you hit the up arrow, and if you want to go a little smaller, you hit the down arrow. So just a little quick, easy way to adjust the size of the clock there on your screen. Now, I know it's not easy to remember a lot of these, and so I added this little hover pop-up here. So if you hover over the little eye icon there on the toolbar, it will show you what all of those keyboard shortcuts actually are. So you don't have to keep them in your head. You can actually just refer to that here on the page as well. Now, in addition to all of that, there's actually some other ways you can customize this as well. So I'm going to go back to the real-time clock here and say maybe I don't like this particular font. You know, my idea for what a clock like this should look like was to sort of mimic the old school LED clocks that I grew up with. Maybe you don't like that. Maybe you want to go with something else. You can actually set a different font for this. Now, it's not something that's available in the toolbar, but all you need to do is you need to modify the URL for the page that you go to in order to do that. So I'm going to press F11 to exit full screen mode here, and then I'm going to go up to the URL bar here in the browser, and all I need to do is add a parameter to the end of this. Now, if you're not familiar with parameters in URLs, the first parameter is you specify the first parameter by using a question mark, and it's parameter name equals and then the value. And then for each additional parameter after that, you put an ampersand and then name equals value. So in this case, the parameter that we want to modify is font, and then say equal. And the font does have to be all lowercase. It is picky about that. So in this case, Arial. I did a demonstration earlier, so I want to go to use the Arial font. And you can use any font that you have installed on your computer. It doesn't have to be one of specific ones that I support on my site. So in this case, we'll go to Arial, and I'm going to hit Enter in order to activate that, and there it is. So now we have the clock using the Arial font. So a little smoother, a little more professional, not quite so 1980s, right? So you can do any font that you want. So for example, let's do Courier New. Now this one's going to be a little bit different. It has a space in it. You're not allowed to use spaces in URLs. What they do is they substitute using the plus symbol. So Courier plus New. This is the font that's meant to look like a typewriter, old school typewriter. So there it is. So the font, the Courier New font being used for the clock. And again, you can use any font you have on your computer there as well. Let's see if this one will, or OCR, see if that one actually, there you go. So that's one that I happen to like as well, the OCR font. And that's very distinct, it's very clear. The letters are bold enough and the numbers are bold enough that you can see them from a distance. So that's another one that's going to be available on a lot of people's different computers. And there's some others you can use. So some things that are built into browsers. So there's one called Monospace. Looks like it's doing basically the same thing. But any font that you have on your computer that you want to use, you can do as well. And I've got a couple of fonts that I've actually added to the site, and if you want to sort of reference that, I'll show you how to do that here in a moment. But any of the other customization that you do here on this toolbar, those values are going to be placed in that URL, the parameter list, as well. So say, for example, we want to change the format to 12-hour. We can choose that here in the drop-down. And then when I click View, you'll see that as part of this URL, FMT equals, there we go, I have a hard time highlighting that. There we go. FMT equals 12. So FMT stands for format, and in this case we want 12-hour format. Now, the nice thing about doing it this way is that you can actually bookmark this URL right here. You can, for example, drag it to your desktop, and then anytime you want to return to the clock in this particular state, you just open up that URL, and it takes you back exactly to the format that you were displaying previously. So now, in addition to doing that, in order to see what the URL parameters are, I actually have a cheat sheet that's built into the page. It's not visible, but for anybody who wants to know what the different parameters that are available are, what you can do is you right-click on the page and then say View Page Source, and I have placed those here at the top of the source code for this page, so you can very quickly and easily get to those and see what those are. Okay. All right. So the other thing I wanted to mention while I'm in here is that I have these other two fonts, one called Repetition and one called Penn Station, that are also available in addition to that 7-segment style font as well. So if we want to do this repetition, I'll type the full URL here. So www.djprod.biz clock.php !font equals repetition. I should spell it right. There we go. And so there is another one of the fonts that I actually have provided as part of this website. So you can use that one there as well. And then I'll just show you a demonstration of the other one, the Penn Station. PENNSTATION. And uppercase, lowercase does actually matter here. Now this is this kind of an interesting one that I saw. This one, it's not my favorite because the one character isn't as wide as the rest. So as digits change, it goes from 0 to 1 and 1 to 2, you'll see that the things go a little wider and a little narrower. It's just the way that font is set up. So downside to using that. And a lot of the different fonts you have on your computer will do the same thing. So it's always best to try and use what they call monospaced fonts, where all the characters are the same width. But anyway, so you can customize a bunch of different things on there. So we'll go back to Arial so you can see that it doesn't vary in width, even though this is not it's a variable width font. Anyway, so there it is. Anyway, so that's about it. This tool is available for free. It's been out there for a couple of years. I've done a lot of tweaking on it, especially the last couple of weeks, and it's there for anybody to use at any point. I'm not charging anything for this. I never will, and it doesn't really use any resources on my web server, so there's no reason for me to ever charge for it. I would mention, though, that this sort of, I wouldn't say it integrates with, but it's sort of related to another tool that I have in my Crew Access website, which is a run sheet feature. And the two of those things sort of act together. So if you build a run sheet of like these are the different cues throughout the course of a show, within Crew Access, there is ability there to have one of those events be moved to its own full screen clock, and that's sort of where all this was born from. But this clock feature is absolutely totally free. The Crew Access run sheet feature is actually it's available for free, but it's somewhat limited in what you can do with it at the free tier on that website. So anyway, if you have any questions about this, please be sure and leave those in the comment section down below. I would love to hear what you think of it. I'd also love to hear if you're using it, what you're using it for. I like to have that feedback, because that actually helps me to know what direction I might want to go with it in the future and what features might be useful. So, but along with that, if you have a specific feature in mind and would like me to implement it, please let me know. And if it's something that's easy to do and isn't going to be too disruptive to the way that the site actually works, I will usually take care of that. So if you wanted to engage in a longer discussion about this or anything else related to video production management, you can go over to my Discord server, and there we go, hit the button to display that icon there, or the logo there on screen. But yeah, so you can come over to Discord, join us there, and there's a bunch of people who work in video production who are very knowledgeable, who we just talk to each other and ask each other questions and learn from each other. It's a very active community, and a lot of very knowledgeable and very helpful people are there, a part of it. And I'm always very grateful for the participation that I get from everybody. So there is that. Okay, well, that's going to about do it for now. So thanks everybody for watching, and share this with other people. I want this to be widely used, and I want feedback from people about how I can make it better. So please share it with others as well. So that's going to about do it for now. So thanks everybody for watching, and have a fantastic day.